Hello and welcome to an Arkham Horror deck tech, I guess is what you could call it. But this is going to be sort of a little introduction to the decks that I'm going to be playing because I would like to start a campaign run of the Dunwich Legacy. And so I figured, why rather than just sort of throw the deck lists in the comments or the description like I did in the past, considering this is like my first full like actual campaign that I'm going to be playing, I thought, why not show off the decks, talk a little bit about my choices, and then at least let you all comment on it and let me know if there's any major adjustments I need. I definitely don't want people remaking my decks, because even if they're not the most optimal, these are still some interesting cards and fun things that I want to play with. But if there are some very, very clear errors and things that I definitely shouldn't take into this scenario or whatever, without spoiling anything, feel free to let me know, and I'll happily make some adjustments. But I definitely don't want people remaking a whole deck list and saying that I should play that instead, because one of the parts that I love about this game is deck building. I'm a Johnny from Magic the Gathering. I love expressing myself through my deck building, and even if it's not the most optimal, if I can win with it, then I'll be happy. So we are going to be playing, I'm going to be two-handing the Dunwich Legacy campaign. I'm going to be playing with Monterey Jack and Jackqueline Fine, who's one of the starter investigators, and I recently got all 5 starter investigators. Also, I am very much diving into this game because if you didn't see my Twitter post or you haven't seen the community tab post that I made on my YouTube channel, I have finally got actual binders, and I found binders at Staples. I was browsing Staples for some other stuff, and I came across binders that they have every single color for all the investigators and their classes. So I was like, okay, well, I have to do it now. And so luckily I did have quite a few card sleeve pages left over from my Magic the Gathering days. I did have to buy some extra, but at least that definitely cut down on the cost a lot because I had a lot of pages left. All my player cards are now organized. I'm super stoked about it. It definitely makes deck building so much easier, and also putting away the cards, which is the main thing. So I'm very happy that I actually did that, and I actually I've cleared a shelf now behind me of my board games. That's going to be the Arkham shelf. There's made room for the rest, for more campaigns and more things like that. So regardless, let us dive in. If you don't know what Monterey Jack and Jackqueline Fine do, here are their stats. Even with this video, I will put the deck list in the description below if you do want to look over it yourself. But for Monterey Jack, he has 1 willpower, 4 intellect, 2 might, and 5 agility. And for Jackqueline Fine, it's 5 willpower, 3 intellect, 2 might, and 2 agility. So Monterey Jack was really interesting to me because I noticed that he doesn't get any higher level rogue cards. He's a rogue, but he only gets level 0 cards. However, he can get 1 to 5 level seeker cards. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So I'm definitely going to have to explore that in the future. And then Jackqueline Fine, I just wanted to play one of the starter investigator decks, plus I've never actually played a Mystic before, and she seems really good. So Monterey Jack's ability, if you don't know, at the end of the turn, as a reaction, if you started the round 1 location away from your current location, either gain a resource or draw a card. And if you started 2 or more locations away, then you get to do both instead. So you can get some really good value out of just moving around the map. And especially when you're playing with less people, you're gonna have to do more moving around. So I figure that could be pretty fun. And then his Elder Sign effect is just +1, and if you started the round 1 or more locations away from your current location, you get a resource or draw a card. Extra value. He's got his trusty Bullwhip as his main item. I can play it fast. It's a one-handed melee weapon. Fight using agility instead of might, and if it succeeds, you can exhaust it to deal 1+1 damage or automatically evade the enemy. And then in terms of the weakness, his weakness is Buried Secrets. He gets to put it into his threat area, and then he essentially cannot leave if the area can be investigated. So he just essentially has to investigate before he can start moving around. But if you fail, you can also take a bunch of horror and shuffle back in your deck. And for the random weakness we drew Overzealous, which is a really shitty one. Draw the top card of the encounter deck, and that card gains Surge, meaning that you have to draw the next cards. You're essentially drawing 2 cards off the encounter deck, and that could lead to some really bad situations. I'm really unhappy that I drew that one, because that could potentially ruin a whole scenario for us. For Jackqueline Fine, we have Arbiter of Fates. It's a 3-cost asset that gets put into a threat area, and as a reaction, it essentially gives her free use of her ability, which her ability is interesting. As a reaction, when an investigator at your location would reveal any number of chaos tokens, you reveal 2 additional tokens, and of the revealed tokens, you can choose to cancel 2 non-autofail tokens or 1 autofail token once per round. And then her ability just lets her get an extra use out of that. And then the Elder Sign effect is a +1, but if you use her ability to cancel it or ignore it, draw 1 card. So pretty cool. Her weakness is Dark Future. It is a treachery revelation. You put it into your threat area. You cannot ignore or cancel any of the symbols. And then at the end of your turn, you reveal 5 chaos tokens. And if you happen to get the Elder Sign, you're able to discard it. And then her weakness, we drew Internal Injury, which isn't the worst. She definitely doesn't have a lot of health, but at the same time, you could just use 2 actions to get rid of it. So I would rather much have one of those rather than overzealous, but what are you going to do? So that is that. So let us get into the cards, and I'll go one by one just to talk about my thoughts on them. Some of the cards I've played with before, some of them I haven't. Most of the Mystic cards I have not played with yet. But let's do Monterey Jack first. So first things first, I did want to try out one of the multi-class cards, and I figured this one was going to be pretty useful for him. Ethereal Slip. It is a rogue and a mystic card, but for multi-class cards, you can either count it as one or the other type of class, so it counts as a rogue card in this case. And then you get to choose a non-elite enemy at a revealed location up to 2 locations away, and then you can just swap places with them. And I figured this will count towards his ability because it doesn't specify that you have to move. It just specifies that if you started the round 1 location or X locations away from your starting location, then you get to draw cards or gain resources. So I thought that could be a pretty interesting use out of that. Then we have Scout Ahead. Pretty straightforward. 1-cost event that lets you move up to 3 spaces, and you get to you get to ignore enemy engagement. One thing that I wanted to do with both of these decks is to play them both sort of like generalists. I think they both have pretty good clue getting capabilities, as well as maybe not Jackqueline. Jackqueline definitely needs a little bit more work to actually fight and stuff like that, but Monterey Jack can do a decent amount of fighting with backstab and stuff like that, but also just simply having a really, really high evasion means you can hopefully just avoid enemies. So I think our main goal is just going to be trying to evade enemies, move around the map. I have given Jackqueline some tools to deal with enemies, but at the same time, we're definitely going to have to figure out what a better way to do it is, because again, I haven't played Mystic before, so some of these cards might be garbage. Next up, we have Lone Wolf. Again, because I don't think we're going to be sticking together too much, we're really going to try to sort of spread apart, explore. I know you're not really meant to split the party, but we're going to split the party, and Lone Wolf is going to help us get extra resources while we are alone. We get 2 copies of Narrow Escape. Again, just help us get out of dodge if we have to do something when an enemy is gauged on us, or if we happen to have an enemy that has an attack opportunity against us. We can essentially just buff and then buff up our next skill check. And we are sort of going with a little bit of a +2, excel by 2 theme, because I do have, the Lucky Cigarette Case. So I do have some cards like Lockpicks, for example, which we'll get to right now. Lockpicks, level 1 Lockpicks is nice. We essentially have to beat it by 2, otherwise you have to discard it, but it lets us add our agility to investigate, and especially with Monterey Jack, when both of his main abilities are intellect and agility, that means we get to investigate on a 9. So most likely we're never ever going to have to discard lockpicks, but fingers crossed. I guess really it's just the auto fail we're worried about. And we'll do the Seeker cards last, but I want a little bit of some combat capabilities, because we are going to have to deal with enemies at some point. So I do have sort of a little package of backstab and sneak attack, 2 copies of each, just for us to deal some damage in the instances where we do actually need to kill something rather than just evade them. We also have 2 copies of pickpocketing. We're going to be doing a lot of evading. We have a really good evasion stat, so just lets us keep our resources going with drawing cards. Leo DeLuca, just one of my favorite rogue cards. Very expensive, but because of our ability as Monterey Jack and stuff like that, we can get resources pretty effectively, or at least more effectively than just once a round. And then it simply lets us take extra actions, especially being a generalist. The more actions we can take, the better. We also have Lucky Cigarette Case is our last rogue card. So this is the one that lets us, as a reaction, if we beat a skill test by 2 or more, we get to draw a card. So again, just sort of keeping our resources going, just to let us commit cards when we need to, but still keep our card draw up. And then we have 6 neutral cards. We have Unexpected Courage and Manual Dexterity, just making our good skill even better. And then Unexpected Courage just to fill in any holes. I feel like Unexpected Courage just sort of makes its way into any of my decks because it's just so flexible. We also have 2 copies of Emergency Cash just because we need those resources. We have some pretty expensive cards to get through. And then we, of course, can carry up to 5 other Seeker cards. I just have 4 currently. We have Hyper Awareness, which lets us buff up 2 of our main skills, Intellect and Evasion, or Agility. And then we also have Field Work, which is another one that'll help us sort of beat skill tests by 2 or more. But once we move to a location with at least 1 clue on it, we can essentially get +2 to our next skill check. And that's just generally useful, I think, because we're going to be essentially trying to move around with Monterey Jack as much as possible. Maybe not even necessarily picking up all the clues at once, but maybe going to a location, hitting a bunch of clues, activating our ability to draw a card and get a resource, and then bouncing back next round to another location to sort of keep re-triggering our ability. Because I think that's the main way to play them, is to maximize that. All right, and now we have Jackqueline Fine, and yeah, Jackqueline, again, I wanted some cards to sort of, because I noticed that her ability triggers off of when you reveal any number of Chaos tokens. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a skill test, and there's a lot of cards in Mystic that are reveal a certain amount of tokens, so on and so forth. But let's start going through the cards. We have Mystic, we have Familiar Spirit as one of our allies. I think our only ally, actually. Yeah, it's actually our only ally. But we have quite a few spells and things that we want to keep on the board. So this gives us an extra arcane slot, but it can only be used to carry a spell asset, which is perfectly fine with us, because that's all of our spell assets are able to take up an arcane slot. We also have Crystal Pendulum, bumps up our willpower from a 5 to a 6, and then also after a skill test begins, we can exhaust it and name a number. And if we beat that skill test by a certain amount or fail it by that certain amount, then we get to draw a card. A little bit random, but if we're lucky and we're able to sort of pick and choose how we want to, I figure with her ability, because you're able to reveal two additional tokens, you have a little bit more control over what number you mentioned and what number you're trying to succeed or fail by. We got Voice of Ra, essentially being third and fourth copies of Emergency Cash, but because of her ability, we can have more chances to reveal those symbols and then getting additional additional resources because of it, potentially getting 7 resources max. We have Ward of Protection, just seems like an auto-include Mystic card, just saves us from really, really bad things if we need to, and we're fine taking Horror if we need to. We got Shriveling. So Shriveling just is going to be our way to fight, because again, playing sort of a generalist role lets us use our intellect to fight, and then we can deal +1 damage. And then Rite of Seeking is just going to be the opposite of that, where it lets us use our willpower instead of intellect to investigate, and then potentially get an additional clue out of that. So again, sort of just 2 different things, and again, that's sort of the main reason why we have the Familiar Spirit, is so we can have both of those potentially in play at all times. We got Scrying Mirror. Scrying Mirror is an interesting one. It has 4 uses. After a skill test at your location begins, and this counts to, for other investigators as well, we can exhaust it, and we can spend a secret or a charge off of it, and we can perform the reveal Chaos token step of the test before actually committing cards instead of after, which is interesting. I thought it might be an interesting thing to try out. Again, because she reveals more tokens with her ability, she gets more of a sort of pick and choose, and especially it'll help us in those instances where we might not want to overcommit cards, but we still want to really try to succeed. So I figure it might help with that. For our other hand slot, we have Ritual Candles. This lets us, as a reaction after a symbol is revealed, other than the auto fail and Elder Sign, you get +1 skill value for the test. Now, I don't know if this is how it works, but even though we're not using it in the test, just as long as it's revealed, I'm guessing with Jackqueline's ability, as long as I reveal one of those tokens, even if I choose those tokens to cancel because they were revealed, I get +1 for the skill test, and I can still cancel them or ignore them with Jackqueline's ability. That's how I think the mechanic works. Correct me if I'm wrong, but That's the reason why I included it, because I think that's a pretty strong interaction. We also have Robes of Endless Night, just helps us get out our spell cards faster. Additionally, because we're a little bit weaker on the weaker side in terms of physical health, it'll just bump up our health, give us a little bit of extra body armor as well. We have Hypnotic Gaze. Again, just helps us get rid of, or just get out of dodge, or at least lessen the blow. We're able to ignore an attack against us or at another investigator at a location. And then we can also, again, going with the theme of revealing symbols, if we reveal one of the symbols, we actually have the enemy do damage against them. So again, with Jackqueline's ability, more chance of us to actually do that. We also have Arcane Studies. It just seems pretty useful to be able to bump up our main skill, but also to bump up our intellect if we need to at certain points, because her intellect isn't bad. It's a 3, so about average. For our neutral cards, we have Emergency Cash, because reasons. nothing much to go there. We also, in terms of skill boosting commit cards, we have Perception and Guts, just hitting up 2 of our main abilities, and just, I figure they're good use cards for us. And then we also should be not come as a surprise. We have another Unexpected Courage. And that is it. So those are the decks that I am running for this Dunwich Legacy campaign. I'm super excited. I haven't played the campaign before. I haven't watched any playthroughs. I'm going in pretty much completely blind. So hopefully these decks will suffice. I think they're pretty decent. You know, I'm still learning the game. I'm definitely not a pro, but I think these are pretty decent decks. I at least have some interactions going on that I'm pretty happy about, especially Jackqueline's deck. I'm actually pretty happy with how Jackqueline's deck comes out, assuming that I have the mechanics right. Her ability is definitely interesting, so I'm hopefully not going to get too many things wrong with that. But those are what we're going to be going in with. So next video, I think, is going to be our start to the Dunwich Legacy campaign. If not, there'll be some other videos, of course. There's a lot of other things I want to record. But let me know in the comments below. Let me know if the decks seem decent to you. And yeah, if there are any major changes you would make, I will also list my the expansions that I actually have in the comments below or in the description below. So just so you don't recommend any cards that I don't have. And then I'll give them consideration. Again, can't promise I'll use them, but I definitely appreciate everyone's input, because I know you all know better than I do when it comes to this stuff. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back in the future with some more fun things. I have a Witchbound demo preview that I want to show off to you guys. I'm getting a physical prototype for Encounter Shattered Wastes, that tabletop simulated demo that I did a couple of videos earlier. They're sending me a physical prototype, so we'll do an actual live Let's Play of that. Townsfolk Tussle announced their Kickstarter. They're coming out with an expansion to Townsfolk Tussle later in March, and I'm super excited because they did actually contact me, and they are going to send over some preview materials for that expansion that I'll be able to show off to you all. So I'm super excited for that. It's one of my favorite board games, my favorite boss battlers, and it's like one of the main. It's like one of the first games I started with when I started deciding what I wanted to record board games on this YouTube channel. Of course, more Aeon Trespass Odyssey coming, more Final Girl, a ton more Arkham horror. There's so much. There's not enough time to record everything. Not enough time. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention. Thank you so much to everyone who has just watched the channel, shared the channel, commented on a video, because if you haven't checked out my community tab where I post updates and stuff like that, or if you're not following me on Twitter, we recently just got YouTube partner. So thank you so much everyone who made that possible. I did not expect such positive reception when I started this little board game YouTube channel journey. And yeah, it definitely means a lot. I know that board games typically have their own niches and own communities. Typically people only join a channel for one specific thing. But whether you're here from Aeon Trespass Odyssey, Arkham Horror, Final Girl, whatever, thank you so much to everyone who's at least checked out some of the other videos, and it means a lot. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.